Podcast. Why not have a podcast? Woo! Ha ha! Welcome to Auntie, the first episode of Auntie, my podcast. I'm thrilled. I'm over the moon. I'm in this room all by myself. They've locked the door, and I'm going to start this, and we're going to have a good time. I am so excited for Vu to be here and to hear about the movers and the shakers and all the different people that have graced my life with their positivity and just all of the things that they do. It's going to be a hoot and a holler. And I thought to myself, okay, well, first off, we are here at Rockbox Studios in Rochester, New York, where they have the most updated technology. So I don't need this, but I love it. I like to use it. It's just been a joy to see drag queens all over the world trying different things, trying new things. And I have been thinking about a podcast, and I thought, you know what? I'm jumping off the deep end. I'm doing it. I'm going to do something and challenge myself and have these conversations with these movers and these shakers and these people that inspire me. And hopefully they'll inspire you. And while you're sitting at home, maybe cleaning, or maybe you're doing some work, and you're thinking to yourself, what can I do? Well, you can tune into Auntie. It's like being in my kitchen, right? It's like being in my living room. Oh my gosh. See, when I created Mrs. Kasha Davis, it was always the idea of that crazy aunt that you had who kisses you on the cheek and wears too much perfume and maybe had a couple too many cocktails. And, you know, she just, when she kisses you, it smacks you right in the ear and leaves you ringing for days. But she's just great. You know, she's a little crazy. She's a little fun. She's a little off the rails. And she's a hoot and a holler. And she has this fabulous husband. And here we are today on our first episode, and I thought, who should I have? And of course, it is you, Mr. Davis. Hi.
Hello, my love.
I can't believe this is happening.
I know, you've been talking about it for years.
I mean, years.
Yes.
And so,
finally doing it.
Finally doing it. And I'm normally somebody who just jumps right off and says, just go for it. But this has been something that I've been thinking about for a while. And I am so comfortable here with Fitz at Rockbox. And it's just... So it just makes sense. I've done a couple projects here. I've been on some podcasts here, and I have been sort of, we'll just say, courting him over the years and coming in and talking about what it's like. But really, the more I had some time to think about it, I began to realize that there are so many people that inspire me, and there are so many people that I am like, oh, did you meet, for instance, Aggie Doon? Do you know this one, that one? And I want the world to get to know them. And I want to have these conversations that hopefully we can share with other people in ways that were not there when we were growing up. I mean, we've gotten to a certain age now. We won't say what it is. No, who cares, right? It's a privilege to get older.
It is, yeah, because it's better than the alternative,
it's better than the alternative. And to be honest with you, it's ageism is real, as certainly in the entertainment industry, but more so than anything else in the drag world. A lot of people get focused on the youth, and this isn't only going to be about all the old drag queens I know, but I will have people here of all ages and all walks of life, and again sharing so that we can learn from one another. I have to say, when I thought about who in the heck should be here first, I immediately thought of you.
Well, I'm truly honored to be the first guest.
And have you ever been? Well, yes, you've done a couple podcasts.
A couple. One here, actually.
One here, but you've done with Christopher Hamlin and Latrice. Or no, not with Latrice, but what was that? It was with World of Wonder.
It was the husbands of drag queens.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, we should know. Well, when I think back to the first moments of making the decision to be Mr. and Mrs. Davis, it was 100% teamwork. Something that we did together. Now, you remember, where were we?
We were in P-Town, and we saw Miss Richfield 1981.
But why were we there?
Well, we were there for basically our first vacation ever. We went to P-Town. We had been seeing each other for a couple of months, and we're like, hey, let's go on vacation. We went to P-Town.
Right.
And it was there that we said, you know what? Let's be a couple.
I know. And it was, well, without going too far back into the dating, we had been dating different people previous to one another. And I think we both shared this experience where we were both trying really hard to find a relationship.
Too hard.
Too hard. And then, like, lo and behold, I said, and you said this, that we began to just spend some time getting to know ourselves.
Yeah, I think you really have to be comfortable with yourself and comfortable alone before you can accept someone else in your life and make them happy.
Right. And anybody who knows me knows that along the way, Mr. Davis came equipped with 2 darling daughters, which just literally, like, I was completely over the moon because growing up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, it was this whole thing where, I don't know, it was a little bit more backward there, and you can relate to this as well. We have so many similarities in our journey, but back then it was like, no, gay people can't have families. Gay people can't have children. And that was the whole thing. My mother was like, oh, no, Eddie, you love children. How are you going to be gay? You can't have a family. And I had this hammered into my head. And for years, it was this just turmoil. And, of course, I didn't even think about the fact that a gay man might have children. And we dated, and you didn't tell me for a while.
Yeah, I had so many relationships that as soon as they found out I had kids, boom, they were gone.
Yeah.
They just didn't want to deal with that, So after I told you and you were like, yes, it was so refreshing to find somebody that loved kids as much as I did, because, it's not the only reason I got married, obviously. I've wanted kids since I was a kid. I remember wanting kids, and I didn't know that you could, I came from a small town as well, and just there was no one gay that I knew. So I thought I had to grow up, get married, and, live my life. And, I fell in love with the girl's mom, and we had kids. And, that didn't work out. But
yeah. Well, and I share the almost exact story, which was one of the reasons why we clicked so quickly, because I, too, married the first girl who would say yes. I don't know if you asked a couple before that.
I did. One more.
But we both love our ex-wives. And
absolutely.
That is, the love is the real love, true love. But we share the story of something was missing. I hate to, I don't know. It was not something that was possible to have that life, to have that relationship. And I don't know about you, but I tortured myself with guilt.
Yeah, the guilt, even for many years after the divorce, I felt guilty for leaving. And
but even just being gay, just guilt.
Yeah. But at what would have been my 20th anniversary, I wrote my ex-wife and I said, just so you know, I didn't marry you to be a beard or anything. I truly loved you. Being gay was something I thought I was going to take to the grave and never actually live that truth until it just became obvious that I wasn't making anyone happy not being myself. And so being true to myself really made everyone happy.
Yeah. And Deb, we can say her name, Deb, is an amazing woman. We're very lucky to have her as a part of our life. And to this point, now we have gone through our struggles, but as a family, we are together on the big birthdays holidays and stuff. And I am so glad to be a part of it. I don't have that relationship with my ex-wife. God bless her soul. She's passed, but I still love her and think of her, and I just appreciate that we have that. And what I'm leading up to is that we had that connection we had such similar stories that when we were dating, I felt like I was floating. It was for the first time. I mean, I fell in love with Anne Marie. I had been attracted to different men that I had dated before, but when I would be out on Park Avenue in Rochester, New York for a lunch or a dinner with you, I literally felt like these tingles in my feet. And I felt like this joy of just spending time with you that I had no idea how long the time was. And we felt that, and we went to P-Town, which is like, I don't know how. My description of P-Town is like if Rochester was Oz in comparison to Scranton, Pennsylvania, P-Town was heaven. I mean, it is heaven. P-Town, for anybody who's not been there, is to me best described as heaven because people are walking down the street any which way. Gay, straight, children, elderly, whatever. All, people just together enjoying their vacation. Enjoying each other. And what's even more special is that there was not like major brand box stores. It was small businesses there. And the artist community was there. And so pulling it back to drag and Miss Richfield, we saw Miss Richfield. And remember when we were in the shop and she recognized us, well, you, when she was out of drag. Do you remember that story? We were in that consignment shop in the basement, and we walked in. Yeah. And what did she call you about your hair?
Oh, no, that was, when we went to dinner later, she came up as her character, Miss Richfield, and she called me Eraserhead.
Eraserhead. Well, no. So that you're right. We saw her in the consignment shop.
Yeah, she said, come see
my show. And we thought, oh, whatever. Why not? And we had both been fans of drag and sort of seen drag in Rochester, New York, Pandora Box, Darien Lake.
But we didn't know her.
I don't think
we knew her at all.
And so we weren't necessarily thinking like, oh, we want to get out and go see all the different drag shows. Because the drag shows here in Rochester were primarily lip syncing and doing their best to look as pretty and as sexy as possible. But then we saw her in the store. And then went out to dinner, and she came down the street on her scooter and said, called you a racist.
Raise her head with her.
And we were like, I don't know what this show is, but we're going.
Right. And it did not disappoint.
Yeah.
In fact, I think we went twice that week.
I think at least twice. Yeah. And my background is theater. You have a background in...
I did some theater too and singing. I was in a band for many years.
I'm trying to get you to talk. Yeah, so I know the answers. Well, listen, we've been together for 21 years. If I don't know all the answers, it's going to be 21 years in March. Okay, so we both have the theater background. You have the lead singing experience, and the experience we had with drag was lip sync and sexiness. But Miss Richfield, no shade, is not the prettiest gal, but was a fully developed character who had his backstory and sang live.
Camp, fun.
And then at the end of the show, there was a message of positivity.
Right.
And we could not stop talking about her. We went back to our room. One of the funniest things. Now, at the time, I'm still drinking then. So some of the stories that we might tell between Mr. and Mrs. Davis did include alcohol because I'm only, at this point, a little over 8 years sober. So now, but back then, I was not sober.
You were not sober.
I wasn't too bad at that point yet. But anyway, we were out and drinking, and we'd come back to the room, remember? And we'd sit at the end of the bed.
We had a giant mirror at the end of the bed.
Yeah, and we'd sit at the end of the bed, and we were like, oh, we have our own television show.
We're hosts of our own TV show. Fast forward,
here we are. And we'd be like, welcome to We're So Much Better Than You Are.
That's terrible.
That's horrible. And it just...
That's vodka.
That was vodka talking, or maybe wine. But it was in that vacation moment that we decided to be together. But the ride home, what is it, 10 hours?
Yeah, at least.
I remember it like it was yesterday. I was just nonstop excitement because I saw Miss Richfield and I loved the queens here in Rochester, but I just couldn't see myself doing that. And I thought, oh, I can develop a character. And you immediately asked me, like, what's your name going to be? And I'm like, Kasha.
Yeah,
And,
first pet, first street.
First pet, first street. Kasha, angry white poodle, Davis Street, a boring street in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And there was not the thought of Mrs. yet, but it was Kasha Davis. And we were like, well, when are you going to do this? I'm like, as soon as I possibly can. And came back home and...
Yeah, we kind of wrote that whole backstory.
Well, we wrote the backstory, in the car on the way home.
Yeah.
And I don't even know. I guess there was cell phones back then. But when we got back home, I get in touch with Mothers, which was just, Mothers for me, moving from Scranton, Pennsylvania to Rochester, New York. Again, it was like Oz. And Mothers was this epitome of aunties and moms that I adored because these queens were putting themselves in a position and they replaced this love of my mother and my grandmother and my aunties who basically disowned me for being gay, for coming out. And so it was home. That bar was home for me.
It's one of the best memories of a gay club.
Yeah.
It was the best club in Rochester at its time.
Yeah. And we just, every night there was a different theme and this, that, and the other. So I remember asking Naomi, who I consider my drag mother, and she was like, I said, can I do a show? And she's like, sure, baby, come on down on Sunday, Okay. And we freaked out. And I was like, I don't know what, I know I wanted to look similar to Miss Richfield and emulate what I saw, but develop my own character. And so I started to do this whole thing like, what did Mrs. Kasha Davis, or what did Kasha Davis have for breakfast? Where is Kasha Davis from? And the whole idea was that, she's a married lady. And she works all day with the house, and she gets excited because she gets to have a cocktail, and she goes out to go out at night. And I chose 2 songs. I chose Lime Jello Marshmallow Cottage Cheese Surprise, which was a Miss Richfield song that, by the way, was written and developed here in Rochester, New York.
Yeah, isn't that? Yeah. Did you know that at the time?
I think I discovered it as time went on. Yeah. And then I enjoy being a girl. And as you know, I rehearsed the crap out of those songs. Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember when they said, come on down on Sunday. And you were like, no, I need at least another week. And we took that week, and you remember, we took pictures in the bathtub of you had lipstick and eyeshadow on. I think that was it.
Lashes, maybe.
Maybe lashes, and then a towel on your head. And then we created a poster.
You created a poster.
Yes.
What I'm saying, what I'm leading up to is that right from the beginning, you're there to help create the character. And right from the beginning, you're Mr. Davis, who is marketing and creating the poster. And we brought that poster all around Rochester and put it up. And I remember hearing the girls
coming
were like,
Sunday.
Coming on Sunday. This gal with just a little blush. It was horrible. Nobody's drag starts are fantastic. And even like my drag from, let's just say All Stars 8 was like, what the hell is that? But you know what I mean? You grow, you evolve. And that's what this podcast is about. We're learning from each other. But when I think about the idea of that time, you were right there with me every step of the way. And Mr. Davis, Steven Levins, I have to ask you, what was it like? Because it is not common for someone to want to be with a drag queen. It is not common, especially back then. Now RuPaul's Drag Race has made it a little bit more fancy. I want to date one of these celebrities or whatever people consider themselves. But when you think about that time, drag queens were not sought after. So here is the guy, I identify as he, him, Ed, out of drag, who I'm assuming you were having similar feelings that I was having about floating on air. I don't know. I can't put words in your mouth, but so here I am. And what was going through your head?
Well, first of all, I was very fascinated by the drag world, drag queens. When I got divorced and I moved to Rochester, I moved in for a short time with my cousin, Sue. And she was like, I find it funny that the movies you brought, because, we had VHS back then, were Mrs. Doubtfire, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and some other drag movie. And I was like, I guess I was more fascinated by drag than I thought, but I don't think I ever wanted to necessarily date a drag queen. And so you and I met before you were a drag queen and fell in love. And then when you said you wanted to be a drag queen, I didn't want to be one. It's not my aesthetic to perform as a drag queen. But if I can do anything to help you, I will do it, because I know you enjoy performing. And if I can help you with your music, with the marketing aspect of it, or the website, that's all fun for me. I enjoy that. I like being behind the scenes.
Well,
so than on camera.
But honestly, we were new in our relationship. So that was, I'm pretty lucky. I mean, I feel pretty lucky, because I feel lucky that I met you. I feel lucky that we have had the experience that we have had thus far, and we've been through it, the good and the bad. But at that time, I wasn't thinking twice, because I went to school for theater. I had a scholarship in theater. My parents made me go to school for business, and I had this job that I enjoyed, and that I found ways. I mean, I think it's important, is that you find whatever your joy is in life, whatever your passions are, if you can find ways to meld it into what you do, then you can work all week at that said job to potentially do the other things on the weekends. And maybe that weekend job can turn into something else, right? But you should never just give it up. Well, I gave it up because I was this telemarketing job, this management director job that I had, which I enjoyed. It was unpredictable. I didn't know what time I was going to get out. And I auditioned for a couple plays, and I couldn't make rehearsals all the time. And so it was very frustrating to me. And there was a part of me that was just dying to get on stage. And that was I felt like it was just I was mourning the fact that part of me was going away. And when that started to come to fruition, because yes, I had the support of obviously you, but also I was diving into this whole new type of performing. And I got to not just it was so crazy that I was creating a different character, that it was not my gender, but yet at the same time was me. It was so fascinating to me at the time. And that I get to say what I'm going to say on stage, what songs I'm going to do. So you're putting together this whole persona, but then the performance. So there was this theater kid, I just exploded. Remember some of the numbers that I first did?
I remember I Drove All Night, where you took our youngest daughter Jessica's little 2-wheel bike and rode that around the whole club as you did your number.
I drove all night to get to you. One of my favorites was you and Dan McCarty, who was there every single time. Because
even when I wasn't. It
got to a point where Mr. Davis was I have to wake up much earlier than you do. And let's not kid ourselves. There was always time for a cocktail.
And you perform predominantly on Sundays.
Yes.
And so Monday mornings come awful quick when you...
Right. It was tough to get on the Friday night show, which was the Ambrosia Salad, the Salad Bar Review. But I would get guest spots on if somebody canceled or whatever. But yeah, it was Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday. And you... Dan would be there, and there was a pageant, and I have never been a pageant lover. And remember, I said, I want to do this Enya song, because I danced in a ballet company for so long. And I was I'm going to do this dance. And I got all set, and I was Alvin Ailey has this whole dance thing where they bring out material, and it's water. Well, the stage was the size of this desk, I think, maybe twice. And you two are on both sides.
Oh, God.
And you have the water, and you're going, and you're doing this waves. And you were both so we're going to do this for Kasha. And we probably all had a couple too many drinks. Well, Naomi was out in the audience laughing and loving it. And I would get in my head, which is something that in life I'm continuing to work on. But I would get in my head, and she'd say to me, Kasha, you are not a pretty girl.
Oh.
Yeah, she's you're a drag queen. Be a drag queen. And I was She was like, be you. Get out on stage and communicate whatever song you like to do. It doesn't matter. And some of the times the hosts would be like, you got to do top 40, whatever else. But she'd be like, no, get out there and do your thing. Oh, my God. I look back at those days and it was just pure joy. But you, Mr. Davis, I say this on so many, on any podcast I've ever been on or an interview, it's always like, it's teamwork. It's something that we've done together from the beginning. And now I love, like, we're matching clothes.
Always match. Well, you just reminded me, we're talking about mothers and all these memories are coming back. And, I'd do anything for you up to and including getting into drag myself
Yes.
to do 2 numbers with you one night.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I sort of loved it, but I sort of hated it.
Yeah.
But we did Sisters. And then we did You're the One That I Want.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Yeah.
I was Sandy and you were Danny.
It was just, it was home. It was where the aunties gathered. It was where the mothers were. It was Mother's Nightclub. And we had those early days of drag, pre-drag race, and, the hierarchy and the echelon. I was the newbie, but I knew I wanted to align myself with those other queens.
And you rose up through the ranks very quickly.
Well, because I think I was no threat.
You're very different than the rest of the queens.
A different type of drag.
Yeah.
And so then I was able to fit into an ensemble. And the one thing that people will say, like, what's the special thing about Rochester is that everybody was always there to help. I have two things I want to mention. The first is when we were backstage, when I got Mrs., there were strippers. I've told you this story. There were strippers there, and they were like, Naomi, my drag mother, was like, go check out that stripper. And I was like, no. I am not. I'm a married lady. And I was like, I'm a married lady. And he was like, oh. So then on stage, when I went to do my number, he said, ladies and gentlemen, the married lady, Mrs. Kasha Davis. And it was like, whoa. I heard this thing. And it was like, okay, now here we are, we're matching. And so much of what I like to emulate as Mr. and Mrs. Davis is what? Lucy and Ricky. Fred and Ethel. George and Wheezy. And the Happy Days, Mrs. C, Mr. and Mrs. C. Right. And then, Homer and
June
Marge.
Cleaver.
The married couple, because there were and until recently, there were no examples of these married couples. Now, I'm not saying that you need to follow the Mr. and Mrs. Davis heteronormative path to marriage, but that it is possible.
Yeah.
That it is possible.
The fact that we both came from being married to women, that it just felt natural to be a little more that for us.
Are you mad that I wore your wig?
No, I know. So the very first Kasha Davis flip wig was, you're like, I want to do drag. I'm like, you can't use my wig because I bought a flip wig for my Wonder Woman outfit for Halloween. But of course, I let you use it. And that became the signature look for probably the first year.
Oh my gosh. Well, because back then there were no places to go online there were places you could go online, but I didn't know a lot about them. It was the Goodwill or somebody would be making stuff. And I've always been more broad-shouldered and have a masculine physique. So anything like vintage or antique, that never fits. Right. Yeah. And I like the look of a nod to the retro as Mrs. Davis. So it was like trying to find stuff. And so that was my hair. Right.
That was your hair. Yeah. Like all the time. You had a lot of other wigs for numbers, but that was the signature look. And then remember, it started to not look so good, so you had it restyled, and then it was like this side,
to the side.
like you were caught in a windstorm. Oh, that was
hysterical.
I loved that incarnation of that particular wig, and I wonder where that is now in the landfill.
Probably. Well, but if you think about back then, though, we of course knew who RuPaul was, but to you, the superstars for us were Miss Richfield, Varla Jean Merman, Coco, Lady Bunny, these cabaret queens. That was making it. Being able to get out on stage, being able to be at a rally, at wigs, like these places where you can go and be at parades and or cabaret spaces or protests as the drag queen. That was making it. I mean, it was literally sneaking out at night to the nightclub.
Yeah.
Do you remember when we first told the kids that I did drag?
We didn't tell them for a while. I wonder why they thought we had all those wigs and costumes in the basement.
Well, I don't think I didn't have that much stuff, but I remember. So we had the kids on Wednesdays and every weekend. And it was devastating for me. The kids would be going to bed and I would have to go and hide again. So here I was. I was getting ready one night, and maybe it was a couple Chardonnays in, whatever the case may be. But I was getting ready and I was like, I'm going back into a closet. What am I doing? I can't do this. And the next morning I said to you, I'm not hiding this from the kids anymore. We have to tell them. And we were scared to tell the kids. And do you remember their reaction?
I don't.
They didn't care. Yeah, they didn't care. They were like, so big deal.
Can we try on the clothes?
Yeah. And then they did fashion shows, and it was like, why did you hide all this fun stuff? You know, they would get into drag. And like they came to some shows. The one time, remember in Syracuse, Jessica, what she said after the show?
Yeah, she said, you would sometimes tell a joke and we'd just hear cricket, cricket.
Cricket, 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 cricket. I was like, okay.
She just didn't get the joke.
She didn't get the joke. Well, and I have to say, I love this fact that we're having this conversation and that you are on the first episode. And what fills my heart is that you complete me in ways. I always say, oh gosh, you know, I'm crazy and wild. And then you are like human Xanax for me, you know, and truly bring me down to a place where I'm at the point now. I remember when, like, back when I was drinking, but also just when it was Friday. What are we going to do? What are we going to do fun? It's Friday night. We have to do, you know, and I was, and you would sometimes just hug me and just bring me back, like calm me down and be like, we're going to stay home and cook dinner tonight. And it would be the most wonderful dinner and just wonderful conversation and being in the moment together. And now I think sobriety has helped me, but having the opportunity to just sit across from you in a recliner and talk about our day and maybe throw a couple reels back and forth to each other with our dog. And then what will top it off for me is to get a phone call from our kids when they want to tell us something funny or share a story.
Yeah, share their life with us. Which,
yeah.
29 and 31 is still amazing that they still want to share their life with you. And, I think we are very much the same in some ways, but we're so different too. And I think it's a beautiful way to complete each other. And, you tend to be way more outgoing than I am. And I would just prefer to just sit home and, be to myself. And you really do prod me to get out there and do stuff. So I think it's the yin and the yang.
Right. Well, the secrets to a relationship are, helping each other get to that place of 100%, whatever it may be. Like I'm able to give you this much energy today and you're able to fill in the gap, or I can't give any and you're going to give it all, and vice versa. But I'll tell you, I mean, I didn't know what to expect. I know that your daughters are the angels of your eyes, and to be able to be there with such a great feeling with Deb and John as parents, and to be able to be a part of the wedding dress opportunity with Jessica and the fittings, and she included me so wonderfully. What was it like for you to have that whole experience after the difficulty in your relationship early on and be there and to walk her down the aisle?
Oh, Well, that's as a father, that's a dream come true, and it just warmed my heart that that they included you in picking out the dress, and let's be real. You've had a profound effect on their lives. Their lives are so much better because you are a part of it, and they'll admit that too, and they've said that. So,
no, we're really lucky. Like the Father's Day gift, I love the cheesy signs, like the one behind you, "Just Be You." But the one they gave us, I'm so glad that you're our dad.
They put
an S with like a marker. And they're just at the point now where like the best Christmas this last Christmas. I mean, we all get together, and I'm still Mr. and Mrs. Claus is sending out the message. What is it that's on your list? And it was so adorable. They asked us, and I said things together, and they gave us these great gift certificates. What's some kind of thing with axes and getting out of rooms? I don't know. What are we gonna do?
We have an escape room. We have a cooking experience at the Culinary Institute, and then Smash Room.
Smash!
We're excited to do that.
I can't wait. Smash Room. Yeah. All right. Well, we are getting towards the end, and there's two things left that I want to do. First and foremost, there's two questions. And the first one I have for you, I'll start this off. These are questions that we did not tell each other that we're going to have for each other. So my first question for you is, when did you first know you were gay?
I think before I knew that there was a word for it, I knew as a very young boy that I liked other little boys, and it wasn't a sexual thing. It was just, I was drawn to their presence and their personality. And I think it was probably several years before I knew what it was.
Right.
But yeah.
Okay. Question for me.
Question for you. So if drag was never a part of your life, what would you be doing now?
Telemarketing. No.
Maybe.
Management, leadership.
Yeah.
I because of their 5 kids, my parents looked to me to help. I've always been a helper, and I had to help with whatever, the house, the this, that, and the other. And my parents were both leaders in their professions, and I gravitated to that. Do I want to be the boss per se? No, I want to inspire. I want to encourage. I want to lead.
And you're particularly good at that, I think. And in my experience, watching you with other people, you're just a born leader.
Oh, thank you. Okay. In our 21 years, what is the first moment that comes to mind as your most memorable moment together?
Probably one day we were living together. So we moved in pretty quickly together. Well, not as quick as we were gonna. We started looking for an apartment right after we came back from P-Town. And then we were both like, oh, maybe not yet. And then a couple months later, so we've been together about 5 months, and your lease was up. And I was like, why don't you move in with me? So we were there for probably a month living together, and you're like, hey, come take a walk with me. And we lived right down from the Eastman Museum. And so we walked down. They have a beautiful garden in there, and you got down on one knee and you proposed.
I love that. I remember that moment. One of those magical moments. I mean, dreams can come true. All those years of crying and at this point in our lives, I mean, we're getting older, but just to be able to be together and kiss each other goodnight and hold hands and just have one another is just such a gift. So thank you for that.
All worked up here.
Okay.
Okay.
Do I have one more question?
I have one more for you. So your mom passed away before, like you were doing drag, but you never really talked to her about it. We think that she knew based on some conversations you've had, but she passed away before you were on RuPaul's Drag Race. What do you think she would have thought of this whole drag race?
I think, first and foremost, much of the character is Miss Richfield, but so much of what I do is my mother, keeping her alive. I never loved anyone growing up more than my mom. She was my everything. And she was sick and she struggled. But now I get to keep so many of her fabulousness and her ways alive. But I know she's proud. I believe in the energy connection of people who've passed, and I feel her presence. And as a matter of fact, I felt her presence at All Stars 8, even when I was creating one of the most hideous costumes ever. She was just sort of like, okay, and I think she encouraged me to say the words, "There's always time for kindness." There was something about like the authenticity, and that's my mom. So I think she would have loved it. Let's not kid ourselves. She would have loved the stuff like the red carpet fame stuff that I'm like, I just want to keep doing. I want to work and I want to create and I want to perform. And she would have loved that. Oh my God, you were in this magazine or whatever. She was that lady.
Well, it reminds me of when she came to our house for the first time, and we were sitting out by the pool, and she was like, "Eddie, I feel like I'm in Hollywood."
Yeah.
So I think she would have loved the fact that you went to Hollywood and you filmed.
Yes.
And I wonder because your mom was funny. I don't think she meant to be, but she was really funny. And I would have loved to hear what she had to say about the dress that you made.
Oh, she would have.
Because I don't think she would have held back.
No, she would have told me that it was horrible. What the hell, Eddie? That's terrible.
Like, here's $1. Go down the store and buy some hair dye and dye that back to brown.
All right, we're at our time. So what we have to do now is we need to. I want to wrap up every one of these episodes with some dad jokes. So we have a box. You could bring a dad joke if you're a guest. But Mr. Davis, what do you got?
I have. Let's see. How do you keep a bull from charging? Take away its credit card.
Oh, so did you pick that because of me?
I did.
Okay. Dad used to hate the idea of having a beard, but it grew on him. Okay, one more.
Where do cows do their shopping?
Catalogs.
Oh, you knew that one.
Okay. Who created Bluetooth? Hans Free. They're so
That's a good one.
They're stupid. I love dad jokes. They make me laugh. Okay. If you out there in the world of the WWW and or the Rochester, New York area want to do a podcast and want to work with the best people, you need to come to Vox, and you can find rockvox.com on the WWW. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we can't wait to see you next time. Remember, there's always time for kindness.